Appalachia. You've heard it. We've seen the reactions. Everything from the beauty of a mountaintop to trailer parks, drugs, and about everything in between. The Appalachian Mountains are the oldest mountains in the world. They once towered 30,000 feet into the air. They stretch from eastern Canada through 14 states all the way to Louisiana. The folks who live in these mountains have faced an unending number of tragic and just plain odd happenings that cry out for the telling. Hello, I'm Larry Bentley, and I was born and raised in these very mountains by a family who themselves were born, raised, and lived for generations in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. Come with me, and we'll take a look at some of the unending stories that come from within my beloved mountains. And we'll look through the eyes of an old Appalachian at some outside the area as well. Welcome to Season 5 of Appalachian Murder, Mystery, and Legend. Howdy, my good friends. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In the past 15 years or so, I've watched several murder investigations and trials play out on national TV. And the ones I'm talking about are the ones involving young women who whacked somebody they supposedly love. Now, it's not so much the trials that got my attention as it was the flat out wackadoodle behavior of the lady when she was brought in for questioning or even after being arrested. Now, police always try to talk to people, which in these cases made me wonder just what kind of a fantasy land these people have been living in to say and do some of the stuff that they did, like bouncing off the walls and stuff. And I mean literally bouncing off the walls, excuse me. Now, seemed to be a bit of a trend there for a spell, so come on in, have yourself sit down. Let me tell you about one such case that took place in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Folks, Ryan Carter Poston was born on December 30th, 1982 in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. His parents were Lisa Carter and Jay Poston, and he had three younger sisters, Allison, Catherine, and Elizabeth. His parents had divorced, and his mom had married a guy named Peter Carter, and Ryan had changed his middle name to Carter in honor of his stepfather. Apparently, he liked his stepfather and was pretty tight with everybody in his whole family. Now, he went to Blessed Sacrament School in Fort Mitchell, the International School of Manila in the Philippines, and the International School of Geneva in Switzerland. Now, once he graduated that long drawn-out process, or at least it would be for me, he went on to Indiana University up in Bloomington, and the guy was so sharp that he ran a triple major, which was history, political science, and geography. Now, and he wasn't done yet, folks, because he went on to law school in Northern Kentucky University over in Highland Heights, where he got his Juris Doctor degree. Folks, that's what I call high achievement. Now, once he had his sheepskins, now he set up his own law office in Cincinnati, but still lived in Highland Heights. Now, all of his friends and family thought the world of him. They all said that he was a great, caring person who was funny as well as smart. Folks said that it was like God took a whole bushel of good and rolled it all up and called it Ryan Poston. And folks, why do bad things always happen to folks like this? I reckon the better folks are, the more the wackadoodle magnet they are, I guess. Now, the only thing that somebody might think of as a bit negative about him was that he had a lawsuit going on against one of his former partners, and he was pretty upset about it. Now, I can't blame him for that. Ain't no telling what all it took place, and to get somebody to have a lawsuit against you to start with, had been some kind of underhanded something that possibly hurt the business. I reckon I'd probably be all upset too. Now, let me see if I got a picture of him here somewhere. I think I do, and we can look at him. He's a fairly nice looking young man, isn't he? Now, being a mountain boy, he was raised around and loved guns. He carried one with him everywhere he went, probably like squirrel gravy too, if truth be known. Now, he kept a few guns locked and loaded and stowed away in his apartment because when you're in the line of business he was, folks tend to get a little worked up when they lose, and apparently they were losing quite a lot when it come to him because he was pretty good. Some of them might just want to take it back out of his hide. Now, he knew that anybody he was associated with might be a target too if that happened, so he made sure that at that time, his ex-girlfriend knew how to shoot to protect herself too. Then in 2011, Ryan was poking around on Facebook when he met 20-year-old Shayna Hubers. Now, since the lovely and gracious Mrs. Bentley and I met before the internet was as big as it is now, I don't have the experience enough to know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but from what I hear, it's most often pretty good, but when it's bad, it's a freight train off the roads into the ditch bad. Now, the way it happened was that Ryan was surfing Facebook one day, and he came across a picture of Shayna on his cousin's Facebook page. Shayna and his cousin, whose name was Carissa Carlisle, were friends. Now, he thought Shayna was really pretty. Now, the next that he saw was the two of them on the beach. Of course, they were both wearing bathing suits, which is what caught his eye. So he did what any red-blooded young man might do. He friended her up on Facebook. She was 20 years old while he was 29. At that age, it's a good bit of difference in maturity level. But once you get up around my age, 9 years ain't that much. Now, she, of all things, was a psychology major at the University of Kentucky. Now, she had actually graduated cum laude in only 3 years, and that's pretty good, folks. Let me see if I've got a picture of her here anywhere. I think I probably do. Actually, I've got a picture of them together here, and you can see how happy they are. Now, that was, like I said, that she graduated in only 3 years, and that's pretty good, folks. Or maybe it was pretty bad, depending on the level of nutball she was. Registering on the whack-a-doodle meter, that is. She was working on becoming a school counselor by getting her master's degree, which by the time I'm done telling this story will make the hair on your nape stand up. So the two of them started up a relationship in real life, and it jumped to volatile and toxic pretty daggone much right out of the box. Now, they did the old break up and get me as far away from the other one as I can, only to turn right around and make it right back up. They did that song and dance over and over again like they were living in a real life Edge of Night. You remember that soap opera, don't you? Especially if you're my age. They were pretty much a walking 1940s country music song, completely with steel guitars and twin fiddles, too. They just kept that square dancing going on for about 18 months. And from everything I see, she was just completely obsessed with Ryan. She would just step out of the dark completely unannounced at his front door and then refuse to leave. She'd even use her computer to search how to pick a lock with a bobby pin, and Ryan finally tried to end the relationship, but she would make him feel so bad about it that he'd end up trying to be a little lenient with her because he felt bad. Folks, being a wackadoodle is bad enough, but being one with a master's degree in psychology makes the whole thing a whole other level of slap nut. Now, he was telling all his friends and family that she was literally the craziest person he'd ever met and was getting real close to restraining order level. Now, in October of 2012, Ryan and Shayna had dinner with his parents, and then they went back to his place where they broke up again. It actually sounds like to me that the situation was literally she invited herself to dinner with him and at his parents, but who am I to say? This time Ryan planned to make the breakup stick. He'd moved on and met a woman named Audrey Bolt. I think I've got a picture of her here as well. Yep, sure do. Now, Audrey Bolt, he met her on Facebook too, because I reckon he didn't learn nothing the first time. But Audrey was Miss Ohio, USA, and was a very attractive young lady, as you can see. She thought the world of Ryan, saying that he was a very smart and very funny guy. They planned to meet on the evening of October 12th, 2012 for a few drinks and maybe run out to play a little 8-ball pool on the pool table at a local bar, which would have been a real good evening for a change. That was the same night that Shayna made a 911 call from, of all places, Ryan's apartment. Appears like she stepped out of the dark again, don't it? Now, the barking moonbat told him that Ryan started pushing her around, and then then he grabbed one of his guns, and then she grabbed the gun away from him and shot him. The 911 operator asked how long ago he was shot, and she tells him, I guess about 10-15 minutes ago. So she wasn't in any hurry, I guess, to give him time to pass on. Now, she said, I'm at 12 Meadow Lane, and I just killed my boyfriend. And then she said, I just killed my boyfriend in self-defense. So the police rolled up on the scene and dragged Shayna to the station to interview her while everything else was going on in Ryan's apartment. Now, they read her Miranda rights, which we all know plainly tells you that you have the right to shut your pie hole and wait for your lawyer to show up, because anything you say can and will be used against you to put you away for the rest of your natural life. Now, of course, she mentioned that she wanted an attorney right off the bat, which was the smartest thing she did all night. At that point, all questions stopped and police waited for a lawyer to show up before they could ask any questions. Now, that being said, so that anybody in kindergarten could understand it, in a nutball's world, they're the smartest person in the room and most likely the world. Now, especially once they have a master's degree in psychology, I reckon. So what happened next was a 3-hour marathon that sounded like an all-day auction at the farmer's market, complete with Lester Flatt, Earl Scruggs, and the Foggy Mountain Boys playing in the background. All that without police asking her a single question. Now, she took in a deep breath and yammered on for 3 hours straight. I reckon the detectives hadn't ever seen anything like it before and were wondering if they should even be sitting there listening to it, since she wanted an attorney. So he said, I'm going to step out of the room. I'll be right back. That's when she opened up the waterworks and started crying. That was until he closed the door behind him. Then she turned it off like she had a 90-degree ball valve and just sat there picking her nose for a spell. What she was telling them was, of course, from her fantasy world view. She weaves a tale of Ryan throwing her against the wall like a rag doll, which changed from the 911 call where she said that he threw her into a bookcase. Then she just kept talking and said he threw her against the couch, and that would be why she didn't have any bruises. Yeah, she just remembered that. So after she landed on whatever she landed on or against or upside, Madman Ryan reached for his gun, which was on the table, but she got it first and started pumping lead. She hit him 4 times, but he was still laying there twitching, so she shot him 2 more times because she didn't want to watch him twitch anymore. She said, I knew Ryan was going to die or have a completely deformed face. Now, he's very vain and wants a nose job, so just that kind of person he is. And I shot him right there, pointing to her nose. I gave him the nose job he always wanted. No, folks, I'm not making this up. Then she ended that tirade with I don't know if anybody'll ever want to marry me now because I killed my boyfriend in self-defense. And then, while the detective was out of the room, they all gathered around to monitor in the next room and watched her on camera just to see what was going to come next. Of course, she did have an encore performance. In fact, she had several of them. She just wouldn't shut up. She danced around the room saying, yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. I can't believe I did it. Not like she was singing a song or something, but that's when she followed up the comments by saying, I'm so good at acting. And after she sang her rendition of Amazing Grace, police figured that somebody probably needed to be in the room with her because they didn't know what the slapnut would do next. So they rotated officers in and out for about every 10 minutes a shift because that's about all they could take, the whack job. So she asked one of them if I had to go to jail, will they let me shower or will I get really nasty dirty? Then she asked another one how he got his teeth so white. She still wouldn't shut up, folks. She said that she gave Ryan the nose job he always wanted all over again, told another policeman that. Now, she was probably the only one that was surprised when she was yanked up and after all the explaining she did, and was promptly indicted and arrested and entered a plea of not guilty on January 16, 2013. Now, the judge set her bail at $5 million, which about knocked her hat in the creek. Now, she sat there staring at the wall, and every chance she got, droning on and on to all the other inmates who restrained themselves from shutting her up the hard way, despite her doing that for nearly 2 years. Now, her trial started on April 13th, 2015. Her poor defense team, I think I've got a picture of her here being arrested or just after she was arrested. Let's see here. There you go. And let's see. Her poor defense team, who were probably likely wishing that they could wear paper bags over their heads, were saying that she acted in self-defense and that she was actually the victim of domestic violence. Now, that while the coroner's report said that Ryan was shot in the back. That would mean that, to me, I guess, that the poor man was trying to run from a barking moonbat with a gun. Now, the prosecution, because they're saying this too, claimed that she looked on his phone and saw his message to Miss Ohio pageant winner, and her cheese slid plumb off her cracker, and she just started shooting. Now, they had Ryan's family, his friends, Miss Ohio, and of course Shayna's jailmates all testify against her. Apparently her jailmates, instead of whacking her, wrote down everything she said so that maybe they could get them a deal out of testifying. They said that she claimed that she hadn't acted in self-defense. She said that she would give herself bruises and then go visit the neighbors and tell them Ryan beat her up. Now, they said that she just laughed about shooting him in the face and made the nose job comment again, and that she was going to plead insanity because she was too smart for the idiots to figure out that she was as sane as a judge. Now, after all she said, she said she had an IQ that matched Einstein's. See, these people just think they're that bright, folks. Now, then they brought hundreds of thousands of text messages that between Ryan and Shayna out. I guess they probably had them in boxes, some big bank boxes, and flopped them up on the counter. There were about 50 from her for every one of his. Now, one time she sent him about 90 messages and wouldn't stop until he finally responded. Then there were no signs of a struggle at all in Ryan's apartment. The bookshelf that he supposedly threw her into had bullets lined up on it that were standing on end, and they weren't even tipped over or slid or anything. They could tell because of the dust around them when they picked them up. Now, there was the night before the murder that they'd broke up, and he told her to get out of the bed or get out, and he went to bed. But instead of leaving, she went downstairs in the living room and called her mother. Her mother drove over just to hold her and hug her. And he didn't know anything about the two of them being there until he got up the next morning and go to work. That takes the E factor up just a bit there, don't it, folks? Now, his defense attorney, to keep Shayna from testifying, which was probably the best thing, if not the only thing the poor man could do for her, on April 23rd, 2015, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found her guilty of murder, and she was sentenced to 40 years in prison. She would have to serve 85% of it, or 34 years, before being eligible for parole. Now, her defense team asked the judge to recognize her as a victim of domestic violence because then she would only have to serve 20% of the sentence before being able to be paroled. Once the judge probably stopped laughing, he said he didn't consider her a victim of domestic violence, and he actually thought about sentencing her to more than 40 years. Of course, her lawyers appealed her conviction, and the appeal was actually granted on August 25th, 2016. And folks, you ain't gonna believe this one. The appeal was granted because one of the jurors lied about having a felony conviction, and felons can't serve in Kentucky juries. So Shayna got herself a whole new trial. So they jog on over to the state penitentiary and drag her back to jail to start her trial, which was scheduled to start on September 18th, 2017. And they probably stopped somewhere along the way to get her something to eat so she'd shut her pie hole and give them some peace. For some reason, the trial was delayed until January 16th, 2018. But then somehow Shayna managed to get a new lawyer from out of state, and they gave him another 6 months to get up to speed on the case, so the second trial ended up starting on August 8th, 2018. Now, this time, the nutball wasn't going to sit there and let the prosecution go through all that evidence all over again, which they did. She was going to testify come hell or high water. Now, I think I got a picture of her here testifying. I ain't mistaken. Let's see here if I can still figure out how to operate this thing or not. Uh, sure enough, there we go. Now, like I said, she's managed to get a lawyer from out of state, and they put her trial off until August 8th, 2018. Now, this time the nutball wasn't sure, or wasn't just going to sit there and let the prosecution go at it again, as she was going to testify come hell or high water, like I said. Now, the first thing she did was change her story again when it came to reaching for a gun, which didn't matter because everybody knew she was lying like a cheap carpet anyway, just like the questionless interview that she did for the police. Now, she just wouldn't shut up. She said that Ryan tormented her about being abused as a child. Yes, folks, that come out just like all good wackadoodles do. She went on to say that he called her an effed up person that couldn't have an orgasm, and that's why he, let alone anybody else, could ever love her. And no, folks, I'm not making that up. Just like all good lunatics do, she had to keep going because she still hadn't said enough. She then said that she went to the doctor and got a G-spot injection to make her G-spot thicker. For the love of Mike, because that was important information for the jury to consider, I reckon. Now, the prosecution used one little phone text to blow that ship out of the water. She texted Ryan and asked if he would please initiate sex because she didn't want to be the one to initiate it all the time. Now, on October 18th, 2018, the jury, once again, they deliberated for the obligatory 5 hours. Apparently, that's the limit in this case, and found her guilty all over again. They didn't give her 40 years this time. They gave her life. Now, the only problem with that was that she'd be eligible for parole in 20 years, which will come in 2032. So I reckon in the long run, she managed to shave off about 20 years of her sentence, which turned out to be a good for her, even though she was expected to walk on the whole thing. In her mind, she didn't think she was going to get anything. Now, the only catch to that was there's no guarantee that she'll be getting out in 2032. In fact, since she's walking around Kentucky Correctional Institution for women in Pewee Valley, probably telling everybody that she back into a corner about the free nose job that she gave her boyfriend, who was actually her ex-boyfriend, she might not ever get out, and that's a good thing for us. Folks, I hope you got something out of our story today, even if it was just to stay out of and away from toxic relationships. You just never know what a full-blown nut job will do. If you did, please rate and review the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening or watching on Spotify, YouTube, or Rumble. And please like and share or show around, and any segment or video you want to use or audio you want to use, you be free to use it anything in any way you want. All I ask is that you mention it came from Appalachian Murder, Mystery, and Legend Podcast. Come on over to Appalachian Murder, Mystery, and Legend Podcast group on Facebook, where we talk Appalachian or about anything else you want to bring up. Folks, I'll be back real soon with another Appalachian Murder, Mystery, or Legend, and I will see you then.